This is the comparison test I've wanted to run for a long time. Nissan Z, Toyota Supra. Rear-wheel drive, turbo V6s with about 400 horsepower, only 2 seats. This is what these cars were in the 90s, and in 2022, they are back and looking better than ever. Very bright too, might I add. Now we're gonna take both these cars on a nice drive, compare them. We've done the standalone videos for both of them, but today, these two are gonna go head to head. And while you're comparison shopping, sell your car on CarGurus. In minutes, you get a cash offer from dealers nationwide. You like it, they pick up your car, they pay you. Any good sports car should look good from the side. You got the long hood, the low shoulder line, and that rakish fastback design. What really accentuates the Z is this two-tone paint. You got the Ikazuchi yellow and this all polished black, just a little bit of silver here. And you got the old retro Z logo there too, in case you didn't know what you were looking at. But you definitely do. Everyone knows this is a Nissan Z. From the front, it's more 240Z from the 70s. The rear, Nissan 300ZX from the 90s. And here, it's all Z from the 2000s and 2010s. That's all a pretty good thing because Nissan didn't really need to change that much of it. And the more I look at this car, the more I'm reminded of classic sports cars like Jaguars and even Aston Martins. I'm going that high because Nissan has a great silhouette here, and that's what you really want in a sports car. This is the performance trim, which comes with the upgraded brakes that you see here with the red calipers and these forged wheels made by Rays. Now, forged wheels are lighter and stronger than cast alloy rims, and they're usually very expensive, so the fact that they're on this Z for just over 50K, pretty impressive. The headlights have this football shape to them, very unique among all cars, and that's not a simple thing to do when everyone has LED running lamps, but the Z looks very unique. You get this slotted grille up in the front, which is all rectangular and upright, and then this nice domed hood. Even though there's really no reason for a giant dome there, well, it looks cool. The rear is just as distinctive as the front. That two-tone design carries over well. You get this wide black bar with these thin LED taillights, a really nice diffuser element, and these silver exhaust tips. Now, I'm not going to complain when I get into a rear-wheel drive, brand new sports car, but compared to the Z, I will complain a little bit because there just are some elements here that strike me. Not in a good way, like that. It's all plastic when they really should be air intakes. But when you look at it from a whole, yeah, it's an interesting shape, not quite as pretty, but certain elements stand out like this clamshell hood, the F1 style nose, these oversized LED lights that look positively piercing at night, gorgeous wheels and brakes. The stance is just perfect on this car, it really is. From everything from the wheel wells to the clearance, you got these nice door handles, double bubble roof, and this gorgeous looking fender design. It got the nice hips, but there's just certain elements like the way this piece is tacked on, this little edge here. It's just not the clean shape that the Z is. The back of the Supra also reminds me of an F1 car. Below here is like an F1 style rain light. It's the reverse light. The taillights are really thin. You got the ducktail spoiler built into the hatch. This rear diffuser, again, like everything else in the car, there's a lot of lines, there's a lot of complex things happening here, but it comes together better than you might think. The Z has a V6 from the Infiniti Q60 Coupe. It's a 3-liter design, twin turbos, 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. It pulls really hard, but it doesn't quite sound as good as the Supra. The Supra uses a BMW engine, 3-liter inline-6, turbocharged, 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. And just like every BMW that has this engine, it's super smooth, it revs freely, and it sounds fantastic. Oh, I love that sound. I love the steering feel. I love the torque. Gosh, the Supra just invites you in, it teases you, and it wants you to keep pushing for more, which I'll do. All that exhaust backfire. It's not just the sound in the theater, it's just really in tune with how you want to drive. There's just one button and one button only. It's sport. You press it and everything just comes more alive. It transforms it into just a louder, more involved experience. And Believe me, it is. Everywhere I'm placing the Supra, it just feels more direct. I feel like I have more control over exactly where this car is pointed. It feels more nimble, it does. It dances around. Not to say that the Z is somehow this large, heavy car, it's not. But you can point the Supra into turns with a lot more confidence than you can in the Z. And all that torque from this Turbo 6, they're both Turbo 6s, but this is a BMW engine. Listen to that thing. God. Gosh. This is what happens when you borrow an engine from an engine company. That's what BMW does. So no matter what you're gonna say about the Supra not having its own engine, its own chassis, honestly, yeah, you can say that. It's not a pure Supra, but guess what? Are you having fun? It's a lie if you're saying you're not having fun in a Supra. And the Supra does calm down. It rides pretty well. It gets nice and quiet, but it's not quite as relaxing as the Z. The Supra just feels easier to place on the road. It's just a hair smaller. That's really nice for handling. It's not so great for visibility when you want to see around you. There's no 360 cameras. Reversing this thing is a challenge, but when you're pointed straight, and believe me, not too many people will be passing you in this car, it's really not something you'll be concerned about. I've driven the 4-cylinder Supra, and it's also pretty good. It is. It costs a whole lot less. It's more than $10,000 cheaper than this car. But, you know, it doesn't sound like this. No, it does not. It does not go this quickly either. And when you have a big motor like this in what is really a small and lightweight car, once you try the faster version, it's really hard to downgrade. Oh, it's just so good. If the Supra is this good with an automatic, just think how great it's going to be with the 6-speed manual. BMW doesn't offer that anymore on their Z4. They don't. I love this automatic. It's great in every application that it's in. The ZF 8-speed, perfect. Can't say a bad thing about it. But a great manual transmission, there's no question that's going to raise this car's profile. So when I drove the Nissan Z automatic, that automatic was short shifting even in sport mode. It just wanted to be at just over idle. When you let your foot off the gas, it just upshifted, upshifted. Not this one. This is anticipating that I want to go a little quicker, but it never hangs on to the gear too long. Plus I got the paddle shifters, and it's just as quick as if I'm shifting automatically. Cars like this are great because they're very quick, but they're not too fast to get you into too much trouble. Who am I kidding? You will get into a lot of trouble with the Supra 3.0. When I first drove the Supra a few years ago, I thought the handling was just a little unsettled. It just felt like it was going to bounce around a bit. But Toyota has since tamed it. They've just made it a little more balanced overall. So when you chuck the car into a corner, you don't feel like it's going to fight you going the opposite direction. It still will do that if you really want to play and hang the tail out on the track. On the road, it just feels like it has that much more grip, where the Z is just gets a little squiggly. You know, these are powerful rear-wheel drive cars, so having all the proper traction in every situation is critical, and the Supra has more of it. Yeah, the brake pedal on the Supra, from the top to the bottom of the pedal travel, way better. The Z just has a lot of response, whether it's 6 gears or 9 on the automatic. You know it's a sports car. It moves, it just hustles. There's a lightness to these controls. The steering is just super light. You just feel like there's a balance. At the limit though, well, the Z does not quite stick like that Supra. I do think it's the tires. These are Bridgestone Potenzas, very capable, but there's just so much power and torque being sent to these rear wheels that you'll find yourself losing traction in situations that you didn't think you should. So I think it just needs a pair of Michelins or something. Something a little better than these factory tires, but for any potential Z customer, that's an easy upgrade. There's plenty of shove with this engine, and all the gears, it's easy to just keep up. You have to work a little harder because the Supra has that really fast shifting 8-speed automatic. So you got to work on your gear changes, but it feels good. The clutch is nice and light. The shifter has a very deliberate throw. You got to throw it in, but it's not notchy, not like BMW shifters, although I like those shifters. Some people complain about them. All that stuff is really subjective. When you get in and you're used to these throws, and they're pretty short, it's just good mechanical feel. Now, not everything about the Z feels so mechanical because some of the sound is just missing. So even if I just drop it in neutral and just, like, that's nice, but it's all intake, there's no exhaust. Because of noise regulations, they put the sport muffler only on the automatic transmission. So I reviewed that car, watched that video after this one, listened to it. There's a clear difference. Now, Nissan says they're probably going to offer a Nismo sport muffler with the manual, or they figure that most Z owners will just rip off the stock muffler and put on whatever they feel sounds the best. But I think they could have done more with, say, an active exhaust where it's nice and quiet like this, but then when you want to get on it, that valve should be opening, and there's no valve to open on this car. That's my only complaint with the sound. So for anyone who thinks this is not a fair fight, a Supra manual with that inline 6-cylinder engine is coming out later in 2022. That's going to be directly comparable to this car. And if you want the automatic Z, it's a 9-speed. There's an 8-speed on the Supra. So these two cars could not be more closely matched. They really couldn't. One very helpful feature, automatic rev matching. Nissan was first in the whole industry to do that with a manual transmission, and they keep doing it with the new Z. So you press a little button here right next to the shifter, drop it from third to second. That's the car doing that, that's not me. And any gear, provided it's not too high, it'll perfectly do it every single time. So as awesome as it is to double clutch yourself and blip the throttle, which I absolutely love, having that option is especially good when you're around really tight corners, want to brake and don't want to heel toe, or if you're like me, you don't really ace it every single time. This car will. What's great about a modern sports car is that it doesn't have to feel like an old sports car. It's not loud, it's not uncomfortable, the wind noise is very minimal, so is even the tire noise on here. These cars are practically grand tours. Like, they're not luxury cars by any means, they're also not bare bones. So in this price category, I've got all the comforts I could want in here, and I don't feel like I'm tired while I'm driving it. Nor do I feel like I'm cramped inside the Z. The Supra is another story. The steering is just nice and light. I wish it had a little bit more feedback at the limit. You kind of don't know what the tires are doing. But if you just don't drive like that, drive normally, just cruise around. I'm looking at water right now off the coast of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Do I need to be carving every apex in this car? No, I just want to enjoy myself. The Z lets you do that. Brakes feel good, even though this is the performance package with the upgraded brakes. I don't like the pedal feel like I do in the Supra. Suspension is really nicely sorted. Now, Nissan has increased the chassis rigidity by about 10%. That's not a whole lot. They didn't have to do that much with this chassis. It's also a little heavier than before, but let's put it this way, at around 3,600 pounds, that qualifies as a light car in 2022, unless you're going for a Miata, but a Miata is so much smaller and so much less powerful. With the Miata, you can't really drive like this. To me, a car like the Nissan Z is becoming rarer and rarer with every model year. For brand new cars that you can get out of the showroom, they're not making them quite like this anymore. They're really not. Electric is great, hybrids are great. I'm not gonna knock them. But for an analog experience in a modern car, you just don't have the choices you did anymore. And the fact that Nissan is still making this car just like they were 20 years ago, even 30 years ago, I think we should celebrate that. The Toyota has a tight cabin, but all of the materials are really first class, including this carbon fiber right here in the console. Now, if you've been in any late model BMW, you'll be very familiar in here. There's nothing Toyota at all. Now, it's not the newest iDrive infotainment version on here, but it is a touchscreen, and it's superior to a lot of Toyota infotainment systems. Those systems have been so old, they're only becoming updated just now, and even now, they're not as good as this. The Supra has a more premium feel, and that's not because this is the premium Supra trim. It just is better fit, better finish. The materials are nicer. After all, it is made by BMW. The Z has a very familiar interior because it's not all new like the Supras. But what you get, this retro-looking design, nice materials, hip-hugging seats, overall you do feel special. The Z uses older parts from older Zs, but that doesn't really bother me so much because they've redesigned the entire interior to look very modern. Fully digital instrument panel that's reconfigurable, unlike the Supra. I got a nice big screen here. Yeah, it's a bit of an older system, but there's still wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I got my manual shifter here, so that I always love. And 3 analog gauges for the turbo and the voltmeter. I don't really know why you'd need to use that on a regular basis, but overall the materials and the design are pretty good. Both of these cars are special inside. That's because there's only 2 seats. They're true sports cars. There's no reason for a dinky little back seat where you can't put anything. It's all about fun. If you're looking for a true sports car, look at what you're getting. Rear-wheel drive, around 400 horsepower, available manual transmissions, a price tag in the mid-50s, and only 2 seats. These are your only 2 choices. The Z tops out at about 53, the Supra 57. Objectively, the Supra is the better car here. The powertrain, the chassis, it's all just dialed in from the moment that you start the engine to the minute that you turn it off and you step out. By the numbers, excellent. But if there's a sports car that I want to look at every day for the next 10 plus years, it's the Nissan Z. It's just a simple and clean design. It doesn't go out of style. And I think if Nissan just slapped on some better summer tires and fixed that exhaust, they'd have the clear winner here. But what do you guys think? Because these cars are so evenly matched, they're both pretty excellent cars. But you tell us, and keep watching for more comparison videos and reviews right here at CarGurus.com and the CarGurus YouTube channel. Subscribe. We'll see you next time.